I'm going to start out by sharing with you an exercise that I always do at seminars and at workshops or any live events that I do when discussing negotiation skills. And it's very fun-filled exercise. It gets everybody going, but it also proves a very important point. And so what I do is I ask participants to make pairs of two, and then I tell them that they are going to compete for $100. The instructions that I give them are very short and very easy. The first thing, each person have to choose a corner for themselves, and then all the pairs come to the middle of the room and try to push the other person to their corner. They get 1 point every time the partner comes to their corner. They will try to get as many points as possible with no regards for anyone else. Each point equals $10. And we want to see how many dollars each person can get. So what happens is I give them 30 seconds. So I will usually read these instructions out pretty quickly to them and say, go. And immediately they try to push each other. It is especially funny when it's a male and a female, because the guy's standard thinking is not only how do I do this without looking like a jerk, but without also being beaten. It's just a very fun exercise to do, but usually we see people are struggling back and forth. There is usually a lot of resistance during the game and someone usually overpowers the other person. And so when it's done, we try to count who got how many dollars. And we find generally the winner has 3 or less points and the loser has either 0 or 1 point. I never found the sum to be more than 4 points. After the exercise, we discuss how the outcome could have been more favorable for both of them. There are certain assumptions that we can get from these results. The first one is that we assume that it is a zero-sum game. In other words, you win or I win. If I win, you lose and vice versa. That's why we approach as adversaries, and hence the second that they come up and I tell them to lock hands and push each other to their corner, and I give them example of how to win a point, I never say you're going to be wrestling. I just said that you have to lock hands. They assume that they were going to be adversaries and that the exercise was going to be about overpowering the other person, and this restricts communication between the two. So rather than them talking about how each one of them can get more dollars, they both shut down communications and think about how to overpower the other person. This limits the optimal solution. So for instance, they could have just agreed to go flip-flop back and forth to both the corners as many times as possible, where they got many more dollars compared to the case when they worked against each other. There are few other options they could have chosen as well, such as they could have chosen the same corner. But the point is that they did not negotiate anything with each other. They assumed that it was going to be about who was more powerful, who had more control, and to get more dollars. So we want to make sure that whenever we are approaching negotiations, we should do it in the right mindset. The traditional method of approaching negotiations is generally in the wrong mindset. When we act as adversaries right out of the gate, act as a foreign conflict, as we have to overpower the person. So we want to make sure that we don't approach like we are going to wrestle other parties. Rather, think how can we sweeten the deal for both the sides.